Are we live? Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. This is our final day of the conference. Amazing. I'm Holly Lombardo, Director of the National Rural Touring Forum, and I'm delighted to be here with you. I don't know about you, but this conference has felt pretty epic, and it has been a huge undertaking, logistically, technically, physically, but it's definitely been worth it, and I hope you agree. We've really enjoyed connecting with you all over the past month, and again, thank you to all those who've been in touch, or for a chat, or a hello, or for feedback on the days. We really appreciate it. Today we will be visiting themes to do with mental health. This is such an important topic generally, but especially right now, with what we've all been facing in the world. It's really important to say that you can contact a member of staff. If you feel affected by any of the themes of today, you can contact a member of staff and we can suggest a place to go for support. We have put trigger warnings on pre-recorded events, but I'm sort of raising a trigger warning for the whole day, and you will see in this session information. There is a link to follow if you feel you would like to. For housekeeping throughout the day, you should know this, but if you're new coming today, you will see the schedule and all of the events will just come up live as we go through. So if you're lost, just go to the schedule, find where it's got a little live, you will see a little live signal thing, and you just click through the sessions throughout the day as they go through. There's always going to be a little bit of a space in between as we close down one Zoom link and one live session and start another one live. So we just get the new panelists in and then we click live. So there's always going to be a little break in between the sessions. Good news is you can still book for this afternoon's workshop too. So quickly, there's only a couple of spaces left. And to end the conference today, we'll be holding a closing session at 3:15, and we'd really love to see loads of you there to talk about the conference, share thoughts, but also to hear from poet Rob G, who is writing live all day and then reading his poem, and Liv, who is going to be reading out some of your high flues, which we want you to write as well, if you can. This morning we have another wonderful poet, Casey Bailey, who's up shortly, a keynote from Ruth Langford, who I had the pleasure of meeting in Adelaide this February. Feels like a lifetime ago. She's a real inspiration. And up next we have Phil Holman, brilliant man, artist, and a very valued board member of the NRTF, who will welcome you to the day. So I'm going to leave you with Phil, and thank you again, everybody.
Hello, folks. Hello to everyone in the UK and beyond. Welcome to day 4 of the conference. Let's get stuck in. If the cultural sector's experience of 2020 could be summed up in a movie tagline, I reckon it'd be the one for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Who will survive and what will be left of them? From the very beginning, I've been imploring anyone who'd listen to face up to the Darwinian logic of this whole situation. Not every artist and not every organisation who was involved in the rural arts sector a year ago will still be present on the landscape a year from now. The only way to face that, I think, is head on, asking ourselves how we support those who can keep going and how we support those who can't. And on both sides of that equation, I see the sector as having some measure of responsibility towards others, no matter what scale or level you operate at, and no matter what direction someone's life is going in. Make a contribution to support others. But instead, in practice, the first wave of this crisis seems to have brought out the sector's selfish gene. Many venues and organisations have often been so focused on their own need to deal with building costs, staff teams, devastated seasons and spiralling losses that they never once checked in with the freelancers or associates who've supposedly been part of the family for years to see how they were getting on. And many artists have often behaved as though someone else is entirely responsible for ensuring they can continue to make a living, complaining that touring schemes and venues or the Arts Council aren't doing enough to keep them afloat, with no regard for whether or not their business model is flexible enough to adapt to a changing world, or if it was ever viable in the first place. I use the V word very intentionally at a time when the entire sector's viability has been so publicly called into question at the most senior government level. I had to go on that skills assessment survey like a lot of people did. And in my case, it was super keen on me becoming either a boxer, a referee, or a Royal Marines commando. But at the same time, I also keep being reminded that what may not be viable in the Chancellor's eyes now may very well become viable again in the near future. I keep seeing articles which point out that pandemics are usually followed by periods where culture and great art flourish. The Italian Renaissance artists getting their paints out after the Black Death, or Shakespeare and Samuel Pepys writing furiously during waves of plague in London. The tricky part is ensuring you're still around when those moments finally come. Nobody doubts that some form of cultural sector will continue to exist into the future. It will be full of occasionally great art, mostly mediocre art, and tons of terrible art, just like it always has been. Probably more terrible art, because bad artists always seem to be the ones who manage to put something out faster than anybody else. But the overarching sector will and should look, feel, and function differently than the one which was our default a year ago. The key principle for us all now, surely, has to be focusing on what we are going to do practically and tangibly to help each other navigate through this crisis together. And for some people, that's going to mean navigating out of the sector entirely. And we need to do all we can to make that transition as positive and painless for them as possible. But I also genuinely believe that there's room to prevent many other losses through adopting more collaborative cultures for developing, making, and presenting work, which are based around everyone at the table or in the Zoom room being more upfront about the challenges they're facing. The problem is we are really bad at asking and really bad at telling others what's genuinely going on in our lives. When we ask someone if they're okay, we generally mean, and they generally respond as if the question had been, how are things at work? And just to make sure, we'll usually jump in before they have a chance to say anything by asking them that precise qualifying question. By sticking to the world of work, and even then quickly swerving away from our own individual circumstances to talk more broadly about furlough schemes and crown jewels and bloody Boris, we dodge the ball of talking more personally, more selfishly about exactly what's going on beyond the curated frame of our Zoom screens. The lives where work, or the lack of work, is one part of a bigger jigsaw. The sometimes messy, sometimes miserable, and sometimes magnificent real worlds we inhabit. Has someone you're talking to been ill with COVID, or with something that's not been detected or treated so effectively because of the COVID crisis? Is someone close to them dealing with illness right now? Have they lost someone dear to them, or is that very near to happening? How's their marriage or their relationship holding up? How are they coping being cooped up with their kids or their partners or their parents? How are they managing for money? Have they got enough to eat? Are they looking after themselves? What if we actually had the courage to tell people when things aren't okay for us? What if we actually had the courage to let someone tell us when things aren't okay for them? If I'm saying all this, and there's even a flicker in your head of something like, it's not up to me how other people deal with their problems, then I respectfully suggest you're not just at the wrong conference, but also working in the wrong sector. Marley's ghost in A Christmas Carol comes clanking back from the spirit world to remind Scrooge that mankind should have been his business. The common welfare should have been his business. But he never realised until it was too late. So this is me clanking my chain to remind you that we are all in the business of doing things for and with other people and strengthening communities as a result. And that should apply just as much to our own creative community as it does to any of the places and postcodes you could stick into a monitoring form. We naturally default to equating mental health with happiness, and we boil decision-making moments down to the question, will I be happy if we do or don't do a particular thing? And on one level, COVID has forced pretty much everyone to discover or reconnect with something simple which brings them joy. No matter what their personal or financial circumstances, I'm willing to bet most people have been able to take pleasure and find respite in something, whether it was making cake or eating cake, crying at Grayson's art club or sending in a piece of art, or just eking out all 10 episodes of Floor is Lava on Netflix to make them last as long as they could. Eventually, inevitably, some kind of live rural arts experiences will also return to fulfill that role for people as well. But there's a place beyond the realm of happiness that I think relates to the question of mental health in an even more profound way. And it's a way which impacts really clearly on the structures, networks, and day-to-day business operations of the whole cultural sector. It comes from the psychologist James Hollis and his book, What Matters Most, where he says, ask yourself of every dilemma, every choice, every relationship, every commitment, or every failure to commit, does this choice diminish me or enlarge me? In every case, how you answer that is up to you. The things that diminish you, don't do. The things that enlarge you, do. Within our sector, it's a question that anyone can apply to themselves, from an individual artist wanting to start out on a rural arts career to a touring scheme which may have been running in a very particular way for decades. From a promoter realizing they need to step away from something they've loved for years, to an arts council faced with a national portfolio that needs to be refreshed 18 months from now. Above all, it's a question which I think could transform the way everyone in the sector approaches how they relate to those around them. It encourages partnerships to emerge out of a good values match rather than simply out of chasing the money. It enables people to view one another as real people and not just as job titles or email signatures. It brings a thrill of clarity when you make a heartfelt decision to say yes to something you want to do. And it brings a warm glow of confidence when you make the sensible decision to say no to something you'd hate. And on a purely practical level, it will certainly cut down the amount of time you spend replying to emails. And more than anything else, for members of the cultural sector, I think it's a brilliant basis for truly putting audiences on top, actively increasing the number of opportunities you have and the amount of time you spend doing things which make you beneficial to the community. And if being beneficial to the community wouldn't be a big step towards boosting your mental health, well, I can always send you a link to a skills assessment survey that might help you find your true calling somewhere else. Thanks for listening.